Tobacco, its senior executives were also planning their smuggling operation. Paul Finlayson worked for Imperial's parent company, Amasco, for 16 years. He says he saw it happen. He says he even helped out.
But what were they asking you to do in layman's terms?
In layman's terms, be able to simulate what the financial results or impacts or benefits to Imperial Tobacco would be on a mathematical basis through a set of equations to allow executives to envision various scenarios by changing the value of certain variables and seeing the end result. Well, this will be our projected operating earnings if we do that.
Did you know you were plugging in a smuggling model?
The Canadian government says it's smuggling. Paul Finlayson says it's smuggling.
Imperial's own internal sales figures show that their exports to the United States rose dramatically, from 800 million cigarettes per year in the 80s to over 6 billion cigarettes by 1993. That's nearly 24% of their entire sales. Amasco's CEO at the time, Purdy Crawford, told the Montreal Gazette he could not deny that cigarettes they shipped to the United States were being smuggled back into Canada. An internal Imperial Tobacco document indicates the same thing. This report says, following a loss of share in 1992, Imperial Tobacco rebounded by making its major trademarks available in smuggled channels in the second half of 1993.
We have internal documents from British American Tobacco, from Imperial Tobacco, that discuss or show that they were in communication with the people who actually moved the cigarettes from the United States into Canada.
So what exactly did Imperial executives know about where their cigarettes were going? According to this RCMP search warrant obtained by the CBC, the way it worked for Imperial Tobacco was very similar to how it worked for RJR McDonald, which started its smuggling operations earlier. They sold cigarettes to shipping companies and what's known as middlemen. Those middlemen arranged for the cigarettes to be shipped to the United States and then sold to smugglers, who in turn brought them back to Canada.
And it worked brilliantly. They made a lot of money.
In the early 90s, Cal Broker owned warehouses in upstate New York. He says several Montreal middlemen approached him to help move Imperial cigarettes into the hands of smugglers. They wanted to use his warehouses to store those cigarettes.
These middlemen, so to speak, were MBA holders. They were ex-corporate executives, very high-level educated businessmen that were playing this, what they called gray market for Imperial Tobacco, with the support of Imperial Tobacco, with Imperial Tobacco's products.
The documents even identify a smuggler, Fabian Hart, seen here with his wife Gail. They live on the Akwesasne Reserve. The documents show that Hart was the final link in the distribution chain Imperial had established. Meanwhile, at the top of the corporate ladder, Amasco and Imperial Tobacco executives worked to garner even more share in the black market. In 1993, while Imperial Tobacco was increasing the retail price of cigarettes they sold legally, the executives were dropping the price in the smuggling market in order to compete with the other tobacco companies. They even asked their overseas partners to give them a break on price so they could lower the price of cigarettes in the Canadian black market as much as possible. This letter, written by former Imperial Tobacco President Don Brown, confirms they were feeding that black market. He writes, "We have decided to remove the limits on our exports to regain our share of Canadian smokers. And until the smuggling issue is resolved, an increasing volume of our domestic sales in Canada will be exported, then smuggled back for sale here."